Welcome back to the podcast. This is, what episode are we on? Is it episode 7, I believe? So one away from the critical episode. I mentioned it earlier, but when I was doing a podcast with my son years ago, I did some studying, did some research, and I found out that most podcasts don't make it past episode 7. So if I can get to the next one, then I feel like I'm pretty secure in going forward with this. I can work a little more about the name of the podcast and make this more of a permanent thing. I'm trying to make this a weekly podcast. It's been a little bit of a struggle. My life outside of cornhole, my work life. We're starting to enter the busy time of the year. The Christmas season is really my busy time of year in my regular job. So I'm trying to ramp up for that, a little focus there. I've been putting some extra content out with the how-to videos and trying to just do more besides just reviews. I want the reviews to still be the base of my channel because that's what started this. That's what most of you are here for, is the bag reviews. I want that to still be the foundation, but I'm trying to add in more content just to give you guys some other stuff besides just the review. So the plan is to keep this going. I eventually said I want to make this a weekly podcast. If not, it's going to be hopefully at least 3 times a month. I still haven't really got a set day. I appreciate you guys being flexible, so I put this out. Let's go ahead and jump in. Got quite a bit of content to talk about with the ACO, the ACL, a lot to talk about the ACL, and I'm going to get on my soapbox. I got some things I want to kind of, some things I'm not happy about the ACL, or I just have questions about, and I want to raise some questions. Some of you may have the same questions. Some of you may not care, and if you don't care, that's fine. You can click off. I'm not going to keep you here if you don't want to watch. There's no problem with that. And if you disagree with me, I'm okay. Again, if you disagree with me, drop comments down below. As long as we do it in the correct way, we can disagree, right? As long as we're not really being aggressive at each other, and most of the time we aren't. As long as we can have different opinions and still get along, right? I have friends that I have different views about life, political views and all that, and yet we're still friends, right? You can separate that stuff, and that's what I want this to be. I want this to be more of an open conversation, an area where, because what I'm sharing, my thoughts, I don't have concrete information on this. There are a lot of things I have questions about. I don't know the answers to, and so that's what I want to do here. This podcast more is raise some of these questions and maybe find the answers. Maybe there are people out there that are watching that have the answers, that are willing to share the answers. Maybe one of you who's watching this now knows the answer to these questions I have, and you can share that, and then I'll be happy to pass it on, even if I'm wrong, especially if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong about something, I am not afraid to say, hey, I got that wrong. As long as I know the information I'm putting out is correct, that's what I want to do. But sometimes I have to speculate because I don't have the right information. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to do some speculation. But first, I want to talk about the ACO. They had their major this past weekend, the Spooky Nook in Hamilton, Ohio. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it. It was great competition on there. In fact, one of the things that happened this weekend was the skins event they ran. I'll try to put a link to that in the description of this video. If I remember when I'm editing, I'll put a link description here because I talk about the skins event and the format, how much I love it better than the round limited. If you haven't watched the skins event, go click on that link. Go watch. You don't have to watch the whole thing. I don't know how long the recording is, but it's on their YouTube page. I'll link it down there. Click on that. Just watch a match or two and see if you like it more than the round limited. You know, it may take a match or two of watching to really kind of understand the format if you're not familiar with skins. Skins kind of came from the golf world, I think. That's where I remember growing up, was the golf world. They played skins matches, and they took that and transformed it into cornhole. So go watch that. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've watched it, especially the first time seeing that. If you watch it, your thoughts on it, how you feel about it, if you find it more exciting to watch than round limited, or if not. I just want to hear your thoughts. So go check on that. I'll put a link description. If you're watching this and there isn't a link in the description, drop a comment down below or shoot me a message, and I'll go correct it, update that, and put things. Sometimes I forget things when I'm editing. The other thing I want to mention is the majors this year in the ACO. I don't think I've mentioned this yet. They've gone to their championship bracket at the end of every major for the pro players. They're going to do, or the top division. I guess it's pro, but it can also be amateurs that play in that well if they get up there. They're going to take the top 8 and create a championship bracket to play at each event, which is something they did, I think, only at the World Championships previously. This year, doing it every tournament. I absolutely love that. Regardless of how many brackets are out there, so if there's 4 brackets, it's the top 2 in each bracket. If there's only 2 brackets, the top 4 in each bracket. If it's 8 brackets, it's the bracket winner. They're taking the final 8 players, putting them into a brand new bracket and running a new tournament that way. Which means, because sometimes you get in these tournaments and sometimes a bracket is more stacked than another bracket, or for some reason a player has an easier run because maybe the top seeds are losing or getting upset, and a player has a little bit easier path to get to the bracket championship, whereas another player has to really fight and play a lot tougher competition to get there. But once you both get there, now you go into a new bracket, things are even again, and you start over. I like that. It's more exciting. It's fun to watch. I think it does kind of balance out that championship side of it. So if you haven't watched an ACO Major, at least go in and watch the final bracket. I think it's just great cornhole. It's great competition. I love it. I love that the ACO was doing that. I would love to see the ACL go that way, because ACL, when they go to their final bracket, it's a single elimination. You're one and done. I always like the one and done, because sometimes we have a bad game. Sometimes you have one bad round that can cost you a game. Sometimes you just get bad luck and you get a bad draw, and you might be the second best player in the tournament, but you drew the best player in the first round, and then you're out and you're done, right? And so that's the beauty of double elimination, is if you are the second best player, you can work your way back up and meet them again in the championship and show that you are the second best player. Or maybe you get a chance to, maybe you were the best player, you had a bad game or a bad round, you can come back and you can beat them again when you come out of that loser's bracket to win. So I love the double elimination format. I think it's really critical for cornhole, for finding the best player. Because again, the best players don't always win every game, but over the course of a tournament, over the course of when you do double elimination, I think you do bring a lot more of the better players to the top as opposed to single elimination. So I love the fact they're doing that. The other thing I'll mention is Caleb and Isaac Hurt. Those two guys deserve to be in discussion for the best players in the world. Now, again, they didn't win the doubles event. I think they came in second at the Spooky Nook Major. They didn't win. I mean, in a way, they get upset. Anytime they don't win, it's an upset. But watching them play in singles, and I believe Caleb beat Isaac this weekend, right? If I remember right, Caleb beat Isaac. They were both. I think they played. They played. I think Caleb beat Isaac. He went to loser bracket, came back, met him in the championship. Caleb beat him again there. I watch those guys play. Like I said, they can beat anybody when they're at the best at the top of their game. They can beat anybody. And I know a lot of you ACL players don't watch ACO. A lot of people just assume the ACO is minor leagues. The players in the ACO aren't at the same level as the ACL. And depth wise, I think the ACL is deeper. You take the top 100 pros in each league, the top 50 pros in each league. The ACL is deeper in that bottom half, that bottom section. They've got better players. But at the top players in the ACO can compete with the ACL. And I even go back and look at Jeremiah Ellis. Just 2 years ago, he was the ACO. He was the king of cornhole in the ACO, won that, went into the ACL's rookie season. And I don't want to say dominated. He came out hot and dominated. He kind of tailed off towards the end. Still had an incredible season. It was very competitive and arguably, one of the best, if not the best player during that season. At least for a portion of that season, he was the best player. And so I think that shows you that there are ACO players that can compete. And I wish the leagues would get together and just do, it doesn't have to be every year, but I think about like golf, where they have the Ryder Cup, or even go back to football. Back before the Super Bowl, they had the NFL versus the AFL. They would have a championship game between the different leagues. I would love to see the ACL, the ACO, maybe even the TCL, put their best players out there and just do a tournament once every couple of years or something like that, and maybe do it for charity. Right? Each league picks a charity an organization they want to support, and whichever league wins, the money goes to that league's charity or some sort of way there. Have fun, make it entertaining. I think a lot of people watch that, and the one league that would say no to that is the ACL, because they have the most to lose. Right? The ACL wants to have that perception that they are the best league, they have the best players. And so something like that is only going to show people that the other leagues have great players as well. And so I think the ACL would balk at it. I don't think the ACO or the TCL, I think they would love to do that. I think they want to show that they can compete with the quote unquote big boy, the ACL. I just don't know if the ACL did it, but I would love to see it. I think as fans, we would watch it. It'd probably be one of the most watched events they put. If they did that and put that on ESPN or CBS Sports Network somewhere, that would get a ton of views. I wish we could figure out a way to make that happen. I want to see that. But going back to the Hurts is kind of what led me to that. Is I love watching Isaac Hurt play, and to me, Caleb Hurt is phenomenal, great player. I think Isaac is maybe just a little better than Caleb, or at least when Isaac is on his best, when they both play their best, I think Isaac's game is better than Caleb. I think Isaac hasn't built that mental side of the game yet to where Caleb is. I think sometimes you watch Isaac play, and when he starts having a bad shot or two, he struggles. But for play-wise, Isaac has every shot in the book. He can hit every shot. He can do every shot. When he's hitting his airmails and his pushes, he's unstoppable. He could beat anybody out there. That's why I would love, if those two ever go to the ACL, which I think at some point they might have to. I don't know. It depends on the direction the ACL is going, and we'll talk about it later. But if they ever go to the ACL, I could see those two jumping right in and just dominating the league. Like, they are that good. If you haven't watched Caleb and Isaac Hurt play, go watch some ACO events. Even if you just watch, like, the beauty of the majors I mentioned is that championship bracket is they'll shut down and do a new stream for the final 8 typically. I think they do that. You can just go watch the final 8 stream. It's not as long as the whole tournament, and you can see the level of the quality of play that's at that level. And I think if you haven't watched the ACO, you'll be surprised with that. So check that out. Again, go watch the Skins event too if you haven't. I want to hear your comments, your thoughts on that. Jumping to the ACL side, they just had their first Open in Rock Hill, South Carolina this past weekend. It was the new shootout format. For those of you that watched, I'd love to get your thoughts on the format. I think I've shared my opinions. I'm not a big fan of that round limited format. I do question if the games were really shorter. Like, I would love to know, and I don't know if the ACL, I don't think the ACL scoreboard, the ACL software keeps track of time. I would love to know the average time of a game to 21 and the average time of these round limited. I think they're playing to 12 on the Pro Elite division. They're playing to 12 rounds. I'd love to know the average time of those games because I felt like this shootout format wasn't really that much quicker. And that's because as you get close to the end, there's more timeouts. They're calling more timeouts because each round is more important because they either don't want to give up points or they need to score points. They're taking more time to make those shots, which to me isn't as exciting to watch. I hate that's a whole nother thing, but I hate the number of timeouts the ACL allows in their division, especially in doubles. In doubles, you really don't need timeouts. You have a partner. That's your timeout. Your partner should be paying attention and telling you what they see and what to do. And in the ACL, they have TV monitors up on the side of the courts. Most of the time, especially at all the Opens, now they're doing this. I think they did have a case where one of the TV monitors was down, but they have monitors. You can look and see the overhead shot of the board. You don't need to call, I don't know, was it 4 timeouts they get or something? I can't remember. Is it 4 or 6? I don't know. There's way too many timeouts in the ACL. They've got to limit that down, especially if they want to go to shorten these games. It's just too long. And when there's no action plan, it's not fun to watch. Right? Cornhole is not a great spectator sport. When you have a lot of dead time, a lot of dead air, it's not fun to watch. And I give props to the announcers, the ACL announcers, even the ACL. Anytime you're announcing, you're on the mic for cornhole, it's tough. It really is tough to keep it exciting. I give them props. I have the ultimate respect for them because I know I couldn't do it better than they're doing it. So I'm never going to, I want to say I'm never going to criticize. I hope I never criticize the announcers and what they do because they do a phenomenal job. And it's not easy. I try to do it in my local league, and it's tough. It's tough to commentate a cornhole match and fill in the dead time, and especially when you got that many timeouts. Difficult to do. So the ACL's got to find a way to shorten the timeouts. But I'm curious to know if those round limited games were actually any shorter. I don't know how to figure that out. I thought about going back and just timing the broadcast court matches. It takes a lot of time to go back. Just curious to see how long they take. And then go back and pick an Open and see. Maybe I'll do that. I guess I don't have to watch the whole thing because I can go pull up the YouTube video, timestamp the beginning of the match, timestamp the end, and figure that out. If I got time, maybe I'll try. Maybe I'll do that and see. Curious to see if there really are that much shorter. I mean, occasionally you get that 50, 60 round match in the game to 21, which lasts an hour or more. Those are longer. You're not going to get that in a 12 round match. But how often does that happen? I don't think it happens very often. In most tournaments, you don't see that. So I don't know. Overall, I mean, it was tough this weekend because the ACL had a lot going on in the weekend. They tried to cram everything into not enough time. And so I don't know if you watched the singles on Friday, and it was Friday night, they actually played until Saturday morning. Then they had to finish it up Saturday morning, then go into doubles. It was not fun to watch. I don't like the fact they did that, and I'll get into that. A lot of it had to do with the teams event and stuff, and I wasn't a big fan of that. The other thing I want to talk about on the Open is the payout. Something we've talked about before, and I mentioned in a previous episode. The ACLs on the lower tiers, the competitive intermediate tiers, they've gotten away from paying out money. They're giving prizes. I wasn't really happy with that. I've had a lot of people say that they think the prize format is better than the cash format. And I pulled some data, some stats here. I'm going to pull this up. I want to show you what I came up with, where the payouts are. I've got some questions. I don't have answers. This is one of the things I have questions about. So first thing I want to pull up here is I'm going to pull up the Pro Elite division, and we're going to talk about singles and doubles in there. And I actually did the cash payouts for the singles and then pulled up last year's. This is the 2023 is the Open number 1 for last year, which is in Rock Hill, South Carolina as well. So I've got this year's Open number 1, last year's Open number 1. I'm comparing payouts. And if you look, the singles division for this year, they paid out $10,200. If my math is correct, I hope I got my math correct. Last year, it was $14,700. That's $4,500 difference. They paid out less to the Pro Elite players. And in doubles, it was $15,000 this year. It was $20,600. So $5,600 less again in the Pro Elite division, they paid out in just double. So we were talking about what, almost $10,000? Is it actually, that's actually over $10,000 less to the Pro Elite division in this Open last year than what they paid in this Open this year than what they paid out last year. That's quite a bit of money. Like, the whole point I thought of going to the prize structure and paying less out to the lower levels was to give more to the Pro division, and at least at this point, that's not the case here. And then you drop down to the Advanced division, and the single side of it. This year it was $22.80. Last year was $47.90 again. It's almost half. I guess actually a little more than half. Now, what was weird was the double side. They paid out more in advanced doubles this year than last year, which was odd. Like, it was weird. I think that was the one point. This is the one area, the one division that paid out more. And I don't know if maybe some numbers were off, but they may have posted something wrong. I may have found out a wrong link. I don't know, but they paid out $75.80 to the doubles, and this is total. I guess I should mention, it's not the champion. This is the total payout for that entire division. Just so you know, actually, if you're watching the video, you can see that. And they paid out $38.60 last year, so almost $400, not quite $400 or $4,000 more this year than last year. It's weird. It's weird that one division, you would think that money should have gone to the Pro Elites if they really want to focus on those. I don't know why that was a discrepancy now. I'm really thinking maybe there was an error there. Then we go down to competitive and intermediate, and this is where they switched up the pay structure, right? They went to the prizes as opposed to the payouts. And with the prizes, only the top 5 positions got something out of it. And really, it's only the top 3. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, the total prizes. So last year for competitives, they paid out $2,900 total. And if you look here, they paid out a lot deeper, which I get it. Like, if you're 8th, 9th, 10th, whatever in the rankings there, you're not getting a lot of money. But if you're new, or if you're fairly new to cornhole, maybe it's your first Open, maybe it's one of your first few Opens you've been to, and you have a good tournament and you place and you get $25, you feel like you won. You feel like you walked away. So even though you paid more in entry fees, you feel like you walked away winning some. I think there's something to that. Whereas now, if you finished 8th, 9th, or 10th, you get nothing. So you feel like you lost because you didn't get a prize. You didn't get anything to walk away with. So I think there's some aspect there. If you want to build the sport from the ground up, you want to encourage those newer players to come back. And the best way is to let them win something. I'm not a firm believer everybody gets a trophy, everybody gets a prize. But I do think in a tournament, depending on the size, how many people you have there, you can adjust how many spots you pay out. But I just think sometimes getting something for your win is better than walking away for nothing when you finish in the same spot, if that makes sense. To me, if I'm a new player and I walk away with $20 in my pocket, I felt like I won than if I walked away with nothing, even though I finished the same position. That makes sense? So I don't like the fact that they only paid out the top 5. And then you look at the prize pool. So $2,900 last year for competitive. This year, if you look at the prizes and you value those prizes, that's not $2,900 in prizes. I mean, the elite boards retail for $400. They're not $400 boards. Like, I mean, you can buy those same boards, same quality or better, for $300. But $400 for that. I think a jersey is roughly about $50 on the ACL shop, and then $50 for the singles entry, a future singles entry. So you're looking at, if you do all value, it's $500 for first place. That is an improvement over last year's singles payout, right? So your first place is making money, but as you go, you take the boards away, you start going down those things, the value drops. And I mean, if you're planning on playing in other Opens, then yes, that the entry fee matters. But if maybe this was the Open that was closest to you. Now, here at Rock Hill, they're coming back to Rock Hill again. They're also going to Myrtle Beach. So if you're at Rock Hill, you can play in a future one. But sometimes these Opens are playing in areas where they're not coming back to or getting anywhere near. And maybe somebody's going to that for that's the only Open they're going to. So if they place and win, that future singles entry may not benefit them because they may not be able to use it. I don't know if they can transfer it. I don't know if they can sell it. I don't know if that's an option there. But I'm just saying that sometimes that the value there varies from player to player to what it's worth. Just like the jersey, I don't wear a lot of jerseys. I don't know. I'm more comfortable wearing t-shirts. I don't wear a lot of jerseys. So winning an ACL jersey is not something that I really value, I care about. Some people would, some people don't. Some of you guys have 50 jerseys already. Another jersey to your pile is not something you really want. You're fine getting it. But again, the value is different in that. So that's where the prizes come in, is there's a different value. And overall, I think for me, I'm looking at here overall, the overall prize value compared to the $2,900 they paid out last year, the overall prize value is nowhere near that. Like, the ACL is saving money in that competitive division. So also, you go down to intermediate division. They paid out $1,912, or I forgot doubles. Doubles in competitive was $1,282 last year. They're getting closer to that value. And the doubles entry fee, I think, is like right about $120 this year, which that's one thing. The entry fees for the Opens have gone up. So they're charging more for these entry fees, and they're paying out less in prize money interesting. They're also charging the pro players differently. So in the past, the pros paid $1,000 when they were pro for the entry fee, and I don't for their pro status, and I don't think they paid entry fees this year. They pay $500. All the elite players are paying $500. So they're actually getting less from the pro players. They're getting more because they're opening up to elite players to pay in the elite division, but they're charging entry fees to the pros. Now, the pros don't pay, and elite don't pay this full price. They have a discounted rate. But if they go play in a majority of the opens, the pros and the elites are going to pay more than the pros would have paid it if they paid just $1,000 they did last year. Now, for the pro side of it, their sponsors are paying that money. So for most of them, probably all of them, their sponsors are paying entry fees, so it's not coming out of their pocket. But in a roundabout way, that's money the sponsor could have paid to the pro instead of having to pay the entry fee. So it kind of is coming out of their pocket in some way. But the reason I say that is the ACL is getting more money overall from everybody for these opens and for these tournaments. I understand things are more expensive now than they were last year. Prices are going up, inflation, everything is costing more. So it costs more to run a tournament. I get that. And that's why prices, I don't have a problem with the prices. I do not care about the prices going up. Everything's going up in pricing. I get that. But if you're going to raise the prices, and you're going to take away from the payouts, now you got to do one or the other, right? You can't, I think about restaurants, right? Restaurants, they either raise prices or they shrink down portion sizes, or even you go buy a bag of chips. The chips may stay the same price, but the size gets smaller and smaller and smaller. That's how they counteract the cost of inflation and the prices going up, or they charge more for the same size. If a company charges more and shrinks the size down, I have an issue with that. That now there is a problem, and that's what's going on here with the ACL. So if we go down again, the doubles competitive $1,282, and then they paid out prizes doing 5 spots. Again, they didn't pay as many spots out. The value of the prizes doesn't match the $1,282. So if you go down here in intermediate as well, in singles last year they paid out $1,920 to the intermediate division. This year it's prizes. The comp boards are like $325 retail. Again, they're not worth that, and honestly, I wouldn't want a comp set of boards because they do use that thinner top. I'm not a fan of that at all. To me, the comp boards are worth zero. I don't think there's a value there. But for some of you, if you don't have a set of boards, great. But honestly, I don't know, you could win intermediate and not have a set of boards. So, if you don't have a set of boards, you need a set of boards. There you go. You got comp boards for free. Sure. Like that's at a free value, right? Maybe that is. But even still, if you look at the value of the prizes, they don't total $1,920. And then for the intermediate doubles, actually last year they didn't have an intermediate double because last year they did rounders, then tier G, tier 1, 2, and 3. So basically had the open, advanced, competitive. They didn't have a 4th division. So that is something new this year, the prizes for the intermediate doubles. So that is something they're adding into it. So they added in the intermediate doubles, and it looks like they paid out more in advanced doubles. So 2 areas they paid out more. Everything else they paid out less. If you total all that up, and I didn't really do that, if you total all that up, the ACL is paying out less this year than they did last year. And my first reaction was, okay, maybe attendance was down. They had less money. That's why they paid out less. But on Facebook, Trey Ryder commented on a post. There was a guy posting. I don't remember the guy's name. I wish I remembered his name. I could give him credit in some ways. He was commenting that to him, the attendance looked down in the open. There wasn't many people there. Trey made a comment, and I'll quote what Trey said. And he said, from an amateur perspective, it would have been the 3rd highest attended open of last season. Let me repeat that. From an amateur perspective, it would have been the 3rd highest attended open from last season. So that means that this would rank number 3 in the number of non-pro players, which means attendance was not down. It was higher. It had gone up. So they're bringing in more money, charging more. They're bringing in more people, and they're paying out less. So my question is, where is that extra money going? What's going on here? And I get it. The ACL is a business. They're a for-profit business. They're trying to make money. They're trying to make a profit. I understand that. I don't have I've said it before in the past. That's why they do the stamps. That's why they charge for the stamps. That's why they bring in the money they do. It's a business. They have to make money. They also have expenses. I get all that. But if expenses have gone up that much that you have to raise prices and drop the payouts, then at least just say, be transparent with me, because I am a customer. Like I've spent a ton of money with the ACL. Every time I buy a set of bags, right? Every time I buy, I don't know if I got some ACL bags. Here we go. Every time I buy a set of bags that has this ACL stamp on it, part of that money is going to the ACL. The ACL gets, 15%, I think it is, or something. There's a percentage they get of bag sales that has that stamp on there. So if they're taking, and that stamp money is basically free money for them because it's not really costing them. They're not making the bags. They're not putting any labor. They're not buying materials. That's all done by the bag companies. That's basically free money for them on top of everything else. So I've spent a ton of money over the years just in buying ACL stamp bags I'm a good customer with the ACL. I feel like as a customer, I deserve some sort of explanation on what's going on here. I feel like there needs to be some transparency, right? Show me a successful business that doesn't care about its customer. It's rare. I mean, there may be some, but they're not many, right? As a business, if you don't take care of your customers, you lose your customers. And for the ACL, the amateur players, we are the customer. We're the ones that are funding the pro payouts. We're the ones that are watching the content. If we're not watching the content, the sponsors aren't there. The sponsors are there because they want to get in front of our eyeballs. They want us to see them and then go buy their products. The sponsors aren't there because they want the pros to buy their products. No, they want the amateurs behind. Like the ACL needs the amateur division. At least amateur players. They don't have. I mean, the ACL I think wants to go to a pro only league. That's eventually they want to get rid of the amateur. Is where I feel like they're headed, and that's my pure speculation. But I feel like that direction is they're trying to go pro only and get rid of the amateur division. But they still need amateur players watching their content, just like the NFL. The NFL needs us viewers watching. If we're not watching, the league is going to go under. The NFL relies, any pro league relies on people watching to bring the money in. And I feel like the ACL is I don't know if they don't understand that. I don't know if there's something more like maybe there's a financial issue. Is the ACL struggling financially? And again, I am speculating here. I don't have the information. But the other thing I noticed is All Cornhole is not really. I don't want to say All Cornhole was owned by the ACL, but Stacy Moore, who's in charge of the ACL, was owner of All Cornhole, and then they sold part or all of that to BG. I don't know the sale. I don't know how the sales worked on that, but BG bought part of or all of All Cornhole. They're tied together now. So was that a reason because the ACL needed money, so they had to sell off All Cornhole to raise money? Is this because they're struggling? They've got to take more money and they've got to bring more money in and pay out less because they need the money financially? Is that what's going on? Does the ACL are they just trying to line their pockets and make more money on the people in charge side of it? I don't know. I mean, and even if you take those two extremes out, right? Take those out. Take the fact that they're financially in trouble and take the fact they're just trying to make more money out of it. Then what's the other answer? Like, why are they paying less out? Like, to me, I'm somewhat okay with having to pay more and get less back as an amateur if I know it's going to the pros. And look, maybe the ACL has more of this money they're going to put towards their signature events they're doing later this year, which is where the Nationals, or maybe they're going to have a bigger prize payout at Worlds or something like that. Possible, but if you've got more people, right? This would be the third highest attended Open on the amateur side if it was last year. So you're bringing in more people than you did on average last year. You're bringing in more money because you're charging people more than you were last year, but you're paying out significantly less. There's something there. I just want transparency. I just want the ACL to tell me where's this money going when you're taking, because if I'm buying from a business and that business supports something I don't agree with or don't believe in, I don't want to support them because indirectly my money is going to support something I don't believe in. So I do care about where I spend my money. Now, there are some extreme cases where I still buy from Amazon, I still buy from Walmart, and I buy in these big companies because of price, right? I'm there because they have the cheapest price, they have the best value. The ACL doesn't have the cheapest price, doesn't have the best value. You're paying a premium. Like they're supposedly the premium product on the cornhole side of it, right? So when I'm paying for a premium, I want to know where that extra money is going. And I feel like as a customer, I feel like we should have that right? If you want me as a customer, let me in, let me know what I'm supporting. Let me know where you're taking my money, where you're putting my money. If you're not paying it out, where is it going? Because if I ran a tournament outside, like if I just said, hey, I'm running a tournament here and I'm going to charge you guys $50 a person and I'm going to pay out 30% of it. Like no one's coming. No one's playing the tournament if I'm not paying out. Like people expect 100% payout in tournaments. I think tournament directors should have some money to cover costs and expenses. I do believe in that. Or if I ran a tournament and said $50 a person, I'm only paying out prizes. Like, are you kidding me? Because honestly, like the ACL, those prizes, the ACL's not paying for those prizes. They're not. And at least they're not paying full price. I don't think they're paying a dime. Like those are free prizes for them that they're getting. So it doesn't cost the ACL to pay out those prizes when you look at it that way. Just like if I ran a tournament, I promise you, if I ran a tournament, charge $50 a person, I could come up with the same prizes, the boards, the jerseys, the entry. I could come up with that and have companies donate that to me to the tournament and I could pocket 100% of the money. And I could do that. And if I did that, I can tell you what, people would be screaming that I'm ripping everybody off if I'm not paying out more money. So it's just weird to me that the ACL can do that and everybody's happy with. Not everybody, the ACL can do it. And a lot of people are happy with it. But if someone else did it on the side, they'd be screaming like, "This guy's a ripoff. This guy's a scam. Don't do that tournament." And I just think there's a double standard there. And I feel like again, I want to believe the ACL is not in trouble financially, and they're not just trying to line their pie. I want to believe there's another answer there. I just don't know what that answer is. I just want to know, where is the extra money going? That's all I'm asking. Let me know, where is the money going, ACL? What are you doing with these extra funds that you're bringing in if you're not paying it out to the players? Maybe I'm the only one. I don't know, but it just seems weird to me. I'm gonna jump off that soapbox there, and we're going to move on to the teams, because this was the draft, the team's draft at the ACL weekend, which was one of the reasons why the ACL crammed everything into a short time period, because they wanted to save time for the draft. And does anybody care about the draft? Does anybody care about the team's event? Or, I mean, that's probably the question. Do you care about the team's event? And if you do you care about the draft? Because there's a small percentage of people that care about teams, and even smaller percentage of those that care about the draft. It's like the ACL is trying to make this the NFL draft, and teams is not there yet. The reason the NFL draft, one of the reasons the NFL draft is so popular, is because of the time of year it is. It's like 3 months after the end of the Super Bowl, 3 months before the start of preseason. It's right in that time period where people are missing football and they're just wanting any kind of football content, and the draft brings that to them. The team's draft was at the start of the season. Like, if the NFL did the draft in week 1, it wouldn't be as popular. Right? It would be odd too that you would bring in rookies in week 1, and then try to build. Like, that wouldn't make a lot of sense. And I get the ACL doesn't really have an off season, right? I mean, they ended July, start of August, end of season. They start up in October. There's not really an off season, but run the draft somewhere in there. You know, maybe the draft goes the 1st of September, right? And you can kind of fill in some content when it's not during the middle of the season. And then that would also allow the team. I don't know. I feel like the timing is wrong, and I also feel like I have to care about the event. I have to care about the team's event before I care about the draft. I tried to follow teams last year. I truly did. I got frustrated because there was very little information, almost no information out about it. The ACL wasn't putting information about it. The ACL's website had a team section that wasn't even being updated. I don't even know if the stats that they had on there were from last year or the year before that. I don't know. Like, the stats just never got. I checked partway through the season because I was trying to figure out when the team's event were, like when they were, because I never knew when they were broadcasting them. And more times than not, I would tune in to watch on YouTube, and it was a minor leagues team, not a regular team, and I didn't know that. I'm watching them. I don't know what's going on. It was teams, but it turned out to be minor leagues, not major. It's frustrating when I don't, like, I want to support that, because I look, the better the ACL does, the better the ACO does, the better my channel's going to do. I want cornhole to grow, and one league growing brings everybody up. You know, it's that rising tide raises all ships. I'm not here to try to tear down these leagues, but I'm also, if you're not doing if you're not helping, you're hurting. And I just feel like this team's event is a waste, because is teams the future of cornhole? I don't think so. I just don't think cornhole is a team event. Now, I will say the ACL has changed the format of teams. I don't know what the new format is. Now, maybe they talked about that in the draft. I could care less about watching the draft. I didn't watch it. I do know, I've heard they've changed the format. It's not just all doubles. There could be some singles matches as well. I don't know if the scoring's changed. I don't know how it's going to do it. Like, it needed something, because it was just bad to watch. For pretty much every time I tuned in, it was very rare there was a great matchup. It's just, I don't know. I don't like it. Again, I don't like the round limited. It's part of it as well. So the format change maybe will help. Honestly, I hate to say this, but for those of you who remember Major League Cornhole, I think they had a better format. They had major issues other ways. I think they had a better format in some ways than what they did. Maybe teams is going to that. I don't know. I don't know the format change. I feel like the ACL needs to build up the team's event, put more information out, make it easier to find, like update your website so that I know when a team's event happens, I know where the standings are, I know who to root for. I also hate the fact that in these drafts, the teams, everybody's trying to get their pro partners. So if a player who's on the team switches partners, they're now trading away their old partner. They want to bring their new partner in. But part of the beauty of teams is watching these players play with different partners, play with different players. Like, I remember last year I did watch Jeremiah Ellis and Jacob Trzynski teamed up in one of the events. That was incredible to watch. I mean, those two guys with their personalities, that was so much fun to watch. And you don't see that because they're on different. They have different partners. They're on different sponsored companies. But that was so much fun to watch. And that's kind of what I want to see in these. I want to see different matchups. I want to see different players. I want to see players throwing different bags they don't normally throw. I almost wish that teams was somehow tied. I don't know if you tie it to a bag company. I don't know how you do it. Like, I hate the fact that they're trying to make it geographically. So, here's the team in your area you should root for. But those players on that team aren't tied to that team, right? Like if you're, and I'm not saying you have to, because like the NFL, if Indianapolis Colts draft a player, it doesn't have to be somebody from the area. They can draft somebody from California, right? The NFL doesn't really care where you're from, but those teams have been there a long time, and the community supports it. I don't like the ACL teams. It's just not that big. It hasn't been around that long. People don't care about it. Like, I think the geographical tie isn't there, but I think if you tied it to a bag company, like, people are loyal to their bag companies. If Ultra sponsors a team, and BG sponsors a team, and Brotherhood had a team, and Titan had a team, and AAR, and you go down the list, if they all had a team, I think you'd get more support that way, because now players have a preference. Oh, you know what? I'm a fan of AAR, or you know what? I don't like Ultra. I'm rooting against them, right? I'm rooting for my favorite team, and I'm rooting against my rival. I think you build those rivalries. I think that becomes a better way to build support for it. I don't know how that works, like, in the grand scheme of things. I don't know what the benefit. I mean, the benefit to the bad companies would be is that they get some more recognition. Because I do think, again, I think the ACL and even the ACO to some degree are bad about promoting the bad companies. I just don't get it. Like, these are the companies that are really building your leagues, helping to build your leagues, helping to fund your leagues, and you're not supporting them. And I just don't quite understand that. Like there's got to be some kind of middle ground where these leagues have to find a way to help the bad company, because the better the bad companies do, the better the leagues are going to do. The more money the ACL gets, with the more bags that these companies sell, right? Because they're getting a percentage of them. So why wouldn't they want to support them? The other thing I thought about at these opens as well, and I thought about it before, but I hate the fact there's only one broadcast court. There's every time I'm watching open, I see a matchup that I want to see, but it just doesn't, the timing isn't right to make it to the broadcast court. And so a great matchup is being played that no one can watch. And I hate that. Like if you're the ACL or you're the ACO, you want as many of those great matchups on the broadcast court. You want as many of the great matchups out there for people to see. And I always wonder why wouldn't these leagues set up or allow bag companies to set up and stream stream during that weekend, during that tournament? Like, the ACL can say, hey, we're in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and pick a couple local bag companies. Titans in Georgia right there. I think AAR is over in that area. You can find some of those local bag companies and let them come and let them set up a broadcast court and let them stream and try to, best you can, funnel their sponsored players to their court to help support them. And look, they're putting out content for the league. It's just bringing recognition to the league. Sometimes players will watch because, again, as players, we tend to be more tied to the bag company than we are to the league. We really want to support our bag company, our favorite bag companies, our local bag companies, whatever. And I think there's a stronger connection with the bag company and the amateur players than it is with the league and the players, or the pros and the amateurs. I think if you tie the bag companies into this, and not every bag company want to do it, but I bet a lot of bag companies would be willing to do that. And it doesn't take much to set up a stream. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be overly complicated. You can set up a stream fairly cheaply and make it look really good. It doesn't have to be perfect. And honestly, if it's great cornhole, I don't really care how great the stream is. You don't have to have great. I don't even care if you have announcers at all. Just let me watch the game going on, right? Mic up the player. I'd love to see them mic up the players during these broadcast courts. That's what I want to hear, the players talk. I want to hear the players, especially when they're in timeouts and strategy. I want to hear that. I want to hear them talking to each other. I want to hear the trash talking. That's what I want to hear in the streams more than the commentators sometimes. But I think putting more content out is just going to be good for the sport. It's going to be good for the league. And that's a way to do it and not really incur any more expenses, right? Let these bag companies, or let, other companies, whoever, if another company wants to come in and support and sponsor the broadcast court, let them do it. And as long as it doesn't have a conflict with the ACL sponsors, and honestly, the ACL has their sponsors, just tell the back, hey, you come in, but we've got our sponsors here. You've got to make sure you promote them, put their banners up, whatever. There can be some stipulations on that, but I feel like that's a win-win all the way around. And I don't think that, I want to see that. I want more content out there. I kind of say all that to tie it back to the teams that I was talking about is you've got to find some way to get players to care about the teams, and whether it's because they support the bag company, or maybe each team, like the Major League Cornhole. Again, I know that Major League Cornhole failed. But it didn't fail because of the structure. It failed because of the people running it and the way things were going on and stuff. But they had bag companies. They had a bag company that was the bag company for that team, and they supplied all the bags. So that team threw that bag company's bags. Why couldn't you do something like that? Have some way where you've got, I don't know how many teams there are. I don't know. I think there's 17 bag companies that have pro series bags. There's got to be a way to find a way that those bag companies can each have a team, or tied to a team, or maybe some of the smaller companies team up. Two of them team up and they sponsor a team or something. But have the bag companies tied to the teams, and I think then you're going to have more players care about the team event, if that makes sense. And I'm curious to get your thoughts. Do you care about teams? Did you even know teams is going on? Did any of you watch the teams draft? Do you have a team you root for? I just love to hear your feedback. Did any of you really care about the team's event at all? That's my curiosity on that. And the last thing I want to jump in here, I've tied up a lot of your time. I appreciate your patience with me. The last thing I want to talk about is the Bag Makers Championship. I talked about in the last episode how I want to do a championship standings for the bags that the winning players and teams threw in the opens and the events. And so I was going to do the top 10 rankings, and I realized because they don't play out the ties. So if you finish second in your bracket, you don't play again, right? So the second place in each bracket, you got 4 brackets. There's 4 second places. There's 4 third places, stuff like that. So I had to go back. So I'm actually going to do the top 12. We're going to do the top 4, right? So you take the winner of every bracket. That's your top 4. And then you take your second place in the bracket and third place in the bracket. That's assuming they only have 4 brackets. Now, if they have more brackets, I may have to adjust that. But I think maybe the top 12 would be a more even number, how we do this. But so I just did this. So what I did is first place got 12 points, second place 11, 10, 9, 1 down. But because there were 2 third places, because again, the 2 players that lost in the championship in the semifinals didn't play for third place. So I took third and fourth place, points, totaled them up, and then averaged them out. That's why you're going to get some half points on here, right? The same for the fifth place, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, all tied for second in the brackets. So again, I took the points for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, added them up, divided them by 4, and divided them out that way. And again, so like in singles, AAR finished second, and then they tied for third. They're only getting points for second. I'm not giving them points for the third place tie as well, because I'm trying to let the smaller companies have a chance. Because if I do that, the bigger companies are just going to run away because they've got more players, more opportunities to get more positions. I don't think it's fair. So, but what that does is that second, third, that tie for third, the second player, the second AAR player there takes away points, doesn't allow someone else to get those points. It makes sense, right? So you're taking away points even though no one's. It's just like AAR had 4 players in the top 12 for singles, and then they had I think 3 teams in the top 12 on doubles. So they're only getting points for 1, which is second place in singles, and third place in doubles. But they're taking away other teams, other companies from getting a chance, if that makes sense. Anyway, here's the standings here. It's the first open. This was a shootout format. I almost wanted to devalue this, but because this is an open, and honestly, another thing I didn't mention is the ACL is doing this year differently, is the opens are now count towards pro points. In the past, only the nationals count towards pro points. The nationals and world championships. Now opens count. So now these opens actually matter for play. I love that. I love the fact the opens have a value and are important, which means, Devin Harbaugh is the number 1 ranked player in the world right now because he just won that. And Alan Rawls and Chris Kingsbury, number 1 doubles teams in the world right now because they won this open. And last year it wouldn't have mattered. There were no pro points until the first national. Now I think the nationals, which are now the signature events, are maybe weighted heavier, I think, than the opens. I don't know. I think that's what's going on. But I think that's why the ACL went to the opens being pros and elites only, and everyone else because the pro points counting there. That makes sense. I like that, support that. So because the opens, the shootout formats, and the non-shootout formats count the same for pro points, I'm gonna count them the same for this championship here. For this, we'll see. I can modify it. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And then I'm gonna count the signature events more, maybe double. I don't know if double or 1.5 times. I'll figure that out as we get there. I want to scale them up, and then the pro shootout. I think they're doing pro shootouts this year as well. I think they are. If they're doing those, I'll count those, but they'll count for less. All right, does that make sense? So anyway, here's the standings right now. And it's it's going to change, I think, as we go along. And I'm curious to see how it works out. But on the single side right now, you've only got 8 companies that got points: Ultra, AAR, BG, Lucky, Brotherhood, Titan, Swag Bags. Those were the 8 bag companies that placed in the top 12 in singles. And then on the double side, it was actually even less. You had Ultra, BG, AAR, Lucky, and Cornhole Scenario. Actually, on double side, BG had, I think they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players in there. Now, I did have a question, and maybe you guys can tell me, because it's hard for me to keep track of what bags everybody's throwing. Jay Rubin finished for third in his bracket. I don't know if he was throwing all cornhole bags this weekend or throwing BG. And the reason I asked is I know Ryan Trader was throwing BG bags, which, again, he just got signed by All Cornhole, and I get BG owns all or a portion of All Cornhole, so in a way it's the same company. But I hate the fact, and this is a whole other rant. I wasn't planning on getting on this rant. I was going to leave this out. But I hate the fact that he signed with All Cornhole. He's sponsored by them, but he goes to an event and he throws another company's bag. Even though they're tied together, the image it looks at is, I'm looking at that going, okay, in Ryan Trainer's eyes, All Cornhole doesn't have a bag as good as what BG's bags are. Now, to be fair, Ryan's brother Mason Trader was sponsored by BG, I think last year. I think he still is this year. So I'm sure Ryan has been comfortable throwing BG bags in his household. His brother has them. I'm sure they play a lot. I'm sure he's throwing them. There's probably a comfort level with the BG bag. But you just took that money from All Cornhole. If you wanted the BG bag, then why not sign with BG? You signed with All Cornhole, and you're telling me that they don't have a bag you can throw. I know All Cornhole's coming out with a new herringbone bag that I think Ryan Trader's going to throw. I don't know if they just haven't got it approved yet or released. I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine that they couldn't have a set broken and ready for him to throw yet, or let him throw the Phoenix or the Shag Attack. Like there's bags that All Cornhole has, and I just feel like when you're sponsored by a company, you should do everything you can to promote that company. You're on a broadcast court and you're throwing another company's bags. And again, I know those two companies are tied together, but the average person, the casual fan watching that, doesn't know that. And they see that, and just, I don't know. I go back to the Dream Team in basketball. Those of you old enough to remember the Dream Team. And I remember Michael Jordan was a Nike sponsored player, and I think the warm up suits were actually Reebok, if I remember right. And Jordan refused to wear them. Like he didn't want to wear the Reebok logo. He was a Nike player, and he didn't want to wear another company's gear, apparel, and he ended up having to. But remember, he draped the American flag over his shoulder to cover up that Reebok logo, because he didn't want to promote them. That's brand loyalty. And that's where I think if you're a sponsored player, as the player, that's part of what that company's paying you for. That's what they want, is they want that loyalty. They want wherever you go, you're repping them. Now, I get sometimes these players have a different bag company for doubles. But in Ryan's case, he's throwing All Cornhole in singles and doubles this year. So there's no excuse to throw any other bag when you're at an open like this, like unless he partnered with someone other than Jay. Maybe he partnered up with a BG player. Maybe him and his brother partnered up at an open, and he wanted to throw BG. I get that. That's fine. I don't care if on the back end All Cornhole and BG had something work out and they were fine with it. But from a consumer side, from a viewer side, I watched that and I'm like, why did he not throw All Cornhole? You know, does he really feels like BG has a better bag than All Cornhole has? And it just doesn't like why would I ever go buy an All Cornhole bag? Like if I'm thinking about buying All Cornhole and I look at that and go, well, gosh, I might as well go buy a BG bag, because even even their top pro player thinks that BG makes a better bag. You see what I'm saying? That's the perception. I'm not saying that's what everybody thinks, but that's the perception, and that devalues that All Cornhole bag. Right? It just the All Cornhole is losing some of what they paid for that sponsorship, and I just don't like that. And so for pro players out there, I don't know how many of you watch this, but you should bleed your sponsor. Like everything that you do should be to promote your sponsors in every way you can. I get there's some situations where you go to events and like say you're playing with someone else who's also sponsored and you got to make a decision. That I get, that whatever. But when you're at a singles event, you should be throwing your bag companies bags whenever you can, as much as you can. Even and I always hate broadcast courts. I hate the ACL has a different stipulation, different requirement for bags on broadcast courts than they do otherwise. And sometimes there are players that go to events, don't expect to get on the broadcast court for, I'm talking about broadcast, I mean like the ESPN the ESPN broadcast, the CBS Sports Network, when they actually broadcast on network television, they have to have a bag that's pretty much all one color. They can't use these multicolored bags. I don't get that. I think the bag should be able to make a statement, be able to stand out. I think the bag company should be able to promote themselves with cool designs on the broadcast. They don't let them do that. But I've seen where players have had to switch to different bags on the broadcast court because they didn't have a bag that matched, that met the requirements, or they only brought one set of bags and they're playing somebody who had the same set and they lost and had to switch bags. I just hate that. And so, one, if you're a pro player, when you go to any type of event that has a broadcast court where you have to have a certain type of bag, make sure you have a bag or two sets of bags, different colors to play on the court. But also, whenever you're playing, make sure you're throwing, just support your sponsors. Like, these bag companies are the life of the cornhole, these leagues. I could go on and on this rant. I didn't mean to get on this rant. This was not what I had planned to talk about, but it does bother me. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm alone on this. I'm curious if you even notice that, if you care about that. I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially for those of you who are bag makers. Like, how do you feel about watching your pro player throw someone else's bag? Especially when you just signed a new player, and this is, Ryan Trader is a great player. He's one of the best in the league. This is like their premier player they signed, and he's out there in the first open throwing a different bag. I just don't like that. It just doesn't seem right to me. I don't feel like you would ever see I'm trying to think of a pro athlete, like an NBA player coming out in the court and wearing a shoe of a different company than the one that sponsors them, right? I don't know. It's just something's not right about that. I don't like that. But anyway, we'll get off that. So to jump back into this Bag Makers Championship here, just looking for your feedback, your thoughts on this. Anything surprise you here? Anything that you think I should do differently or tweak in the rankings, the standings, or the point system? I'd love to get your feedback. Now's the time to work out some of the kinks. Maybe there's not a lot to work out yet, but as we get to another 2 or 3 opens down the road, points start accumulating, I can always tweak this. It doesn't have to be set in stone this way. I'm just curious to get your guys' thought on how it is. I don't think there's really big surprises here. I look at it, I mean, you've got mostly your big name companies there. Nothing really stands out as like, wow, I didn't think that bag company's going to be there. So I'd be curious to get your thoughts. I do see a Spike Bags in there. I see a Cornhole Scenario. Brotherhood, I think Brotherhood's not quite at that top tier yet. They're trying to get there. AAR kind of took that leap last year with all the big pro players. I think Brotherhood is starting to do that. May be there. But I mean, again, Brotherhood, Spike Bags, Cornhole Scenario were the 3 that I would say are not the big 5, big 6 companies out there. So love to hear your feedback on that. Again, drop a comment down below, shoot me a message, you got some thoughts. If it's a long thought, shoot me an email, MikesCornholeBags@gmail.com. You can shoot that to me in an email. Try not to make it too long. I don't want to be, reading novels, but again, if you've got some thoughts, I love hearing you guys' opinions. I get a lot of great feedback from you guys. So as always, I thank you so much for your support, and I thank you for watching.